That sometimes is an issue. And some people think that there is something wrong, just not in your consciousness. That may be true. Now, I will bring up medication. I say it again, medication. Because I find people in and out the church, when you hear about medication for illnesses such as depression, schizophrenia, anxiety, oh Lord, when they're trying to get me into a madman, trying to make me walk like a zombie. You know what I'm saying? Look how they getting in Jamal medication, look how he turned out. And then in the church you have, well, you need to pray a little more, trust in the Lord. Where you going to the medication? So in some instances, I've had persons tell me, they don't let anyone in the church know they're taking medication because the impression is that they're weak, and they're weak in Christ. Well, all we weak in Christ. All we fall short. Unless we be judged. But medication is there to help. Counseling and psychotherapy is there to help, and they help best working together. But when we fear the word medication, we are limiting ourselves. If we had a pain on our big toe, we can take some Panadol though. Why don't you fear medication for that? And think about your brothers and sisters sitting next to you, who you don't know if they're taking medication or not for any illness. And the mere fact that they think they have to sit still and don't let anybody know that they're taking drugs or they're seeing a psychiatrist or they're seeing a psychologist for fair judgment by that person. That's not the family that we are.
Well, Dr. Chase, you see, I'm glad you raised the whole issue of medication. So let's get real. Sometimes on television, I hear medication for depression, and then the side effects. You can die. You may be suicidal. If you're thinking about getting children, don't. And they're advertising it for men. So I don't know how, And some of these side effects seem far more risky than the depression they're trying to solve. It's like almost, they can kill me before they solve the depression. So let's get real about this medication stuff, Dr. Chase.
Right. One of the first things that they said is, as a disclaimer, it increases the risk of suicide. Remembering a lot of these labeling come from the US, and they're obligated to do that. But the explanation behind the risk or the increased risk of suicide is not what people think. The medication don't cause you to become suicidal. We speak about being in a dark place. Picture it like a well. You're at the pit of the well. You're having the thoughts to kill yourself, but you don't have the energy. Sorry, let me start correct. You're having the thoughts. You don't have the motivation or the concentration to think of how you can kill yourself. And when you get to that, you don't have the energy to go and get the necessary instruments to kill yourself with. But as you start to take the medication is man-made. It does not work on everything at the same speed. So it improves your mood slowly, but it usually causes you to sleep better. So therefore, your rest improves your energy levels, improves your motivation. But it has done little or nothing at that point because your mood is still low for the suicidal thoughts. So now you have the energy and the motivation and the concentration to think of how to kill yourself and to do it. Now, that is why I said before earlier, medication and counseling go hand in hand. Because while the medication is working on improving your sleep, particularly sometimes you find a lot of persons, the sleep deprivation is a problem, is the worst problem. It helps with that, and it will help with the mood as time goes on. But there is a period there that if you still have these suicidal thoughts, you don't have the energy, you don't have the concentration, you can't kill yourself. Like every other medication, there are side effects. People say take it with food because if it doesn't, it causes gastric upset. But the benefits I've seen outweigh the risk.
We have one individual with a question.
Good night to the panel. Dr. Chase, you've answered basically what I wanted to ask. But for the other two young ladies, the first one in the right, I can't remember your name.
Allison.
Okay. I heard your testimony, and I appreciate your testimony. But for most of the other persons, they would have been going through depression from other situations and other traumas, and most of them would not have had the support that you would have. For the other young lady, both of you said yes, spirituality is so. Now, if you are taking medication and you are worshiping and everything, you believe by his stripes we are healed, how then do you know to come off the medication? If you've been having suicidal thoughts and ways of thinking to harm other persons or harming yourself, if you are in a dark tunnel and you're by yourself and you're trying to come out by your physical self, and you've been going to counseling, you've been worshiping, you've been turning on the music, you've been listening to it, you are fighting with yourself because you really do not want to do it. Because I would imagine that it is much different than just the everyday, I really don't feel like praying today, or I really don't feel like reading the Bible today. So I would imagine that it is a lot more difficult than that. How then would you know to come off the medication?
I do not suggest coming off medication. If a doctor puts you on medication, no, you go back to your doctor and let him deal with that. I am not suggesting that at all, because as Dr. Chase said, medication works well along with counseling, and if the doctor puts you on that, he has a reason for putting you on that. So if you want to come off, you need to see him first, and Dr. Chase should address that part.
Okay.
Do you have another question as well?
Yes.
Okay, Dr.
Well,
Chase said that I asked you
no,
this
I
question.
will listen and then I would come back.
Oh, okay, well, go ahead, Dr. Chase.
As Anna said, it's a discussion you would have to have with your doctor. Typically, or should I say internationally and universally, they say that they view a lot of illnesses, depression as one of it, sometimes as being a chronic illness. So it's not like the common cold where you take it for a week, some Panadols for a week and you feel better. What they say is that, as well as not every medication works the same way on every individual. So let's say we had 4 different antidepressants available to use in Barbados. We're really and truly in the government service, we only have 2. Anyhow, what may work, the medication that might work for me is not the medication that might work for you. The dose of it might also be different. What might work for me might not work for you. The side effects I might be able to tolerate, and the side effects, you don't even get them. What international standards say is that after 3 to 5 years of not having a depressed episode, on the medication, you can consider tapering it to reduce it. I also hear in your question there seems to be a battle between dealing with the situation from a medical standpoint and a spiritual standpoint. And I don't view it as being a war between the two. It is not a fight between the two. It is not a matter of you either solely believe and your Christian values and you walk that road and by his stripes you are healed and therefore you don't take any medication, or you take the medication and you don't pray to the Lord. One, all knowledge, this is my belief, all knowledge comes from God. What we have achieved in this world have come from God. And he allows us to use it in our best benefit. And if he's given us the knowledge to say there are certain chemicals in your brain that are out of balance when persons are depressed, and give you these drugs that you can use to get your chemicals in your brain back into balance, I think we should use it. Because that came from the Lord. It is not, yes, the medication is man-made, but who put the thought in the man's head? We again go back to this fighting. It doesn't have to be, there's a marriage. And actually, I think attacking it from all sides is probably more beneficial than just going with one side.
Does that answer your question?
Oh, side effects.
Sorry, thank you. It did answer my question, that the two have to go hand in hand. But then I had another question about side effects of the medication, which you did touch on. Yes, you would understand that they may have suicidal tendencies, but I'm thinking of how to word it. Sometimes there would be like excessive drowsiness where then the person cannot function on their everyday task. Sometimes, so it goes beyond suicidal thoughts. It goes beyond suicide in the whole, where medications would seem then to overtake the person from the point that they were at before their depression to the point that they are at during the depression or thereafter. How then, or what would be the best way to deal with those side effects?
Right. Yet, again, I say you need to have that discussion with your physician, because my take on it is that medication is there to help. The medication is there to keep you functional, to get you back at work, or assist. It's not the only thing, but it would assist you in getting back into work, to doing what you have to do at home and at work and around the community. And if you're having that excessive drowsiness or any other side effect from the medication, then we have to look at, in my opinion, the doctor should look at if that's the right medication for you, if they have to change it, if they have to look at the dosage of the medication, because as I said before, it is not a one-size-fits-all suit. What medication may work for me, one particular medication, because you can appreciate that research is done on this internationally all over, big money in pharmaceuticals. So there are a lot of choices of antidepressants and anti-anxiolytics. But not every single one of them is available in Barbados, but they don't work on everybody the same way. So it is not a one-size-suit. So if, as I said before, there were 4 antidepressants, A, B, and C, and D, and you've tried A, and it's making you too drowsy, or is making you, some people say it makes them feel a little anxious as well, you need to speak with your doctor. Maybe you need to look at the dosage. Is the dosage too high? Is the dosage too low? Or maybe we need to try medication B. Because the medication should not feel like a hindrance and a task. It is there to help, not pull you down. So if you're getting that feeling of pulling down, you need to speak with your doctor about it.
Someone here had a question?
Okay, first of all, I just wanted to make one comment about something you said, Brother Calendar. You mentioned that we need to pay attention to where these medications are coming from. And I just want to comment on that. A lot of the medication that we see on the television comes out of the United States, and they're very litigious society. And whenever, even if there's like 1% of a situation arising from a drug, because they're so quick to sue for litigation purposes, they have to indicate that it may cause this, it may cause that, because otherwise one person might have a situation from a drug and then decide to bring a lawsuit and then the company goes under. So just to protect themselves, my understanding is that they have to say whatever ever happened to anybody while taking that drug. So that's...
Yeah, I do agree. And it's for that reason that they usually rattle it off very fast and quickly at the end of the ad, or they have it printed very small at the bottom of the ad. Yeah. In terms of litigation.
Yes.
But while we're on that point, we spoke about drowsiness, we spoke about suicidality. And everyone that's here to increased suicide risk on these ads, because it's like, what? But let's go through some of these side effects or possible side effects. Not all of them are, you're not going to, most people don't experience all of these side effects, but they can. And I think some of my colleagues, we don't do a good enough job in terms of counseling clients, persons on these side effects before starting the drug. Particularly in the government service where you're under a lot of pressure because you're seeing a high volume of patients. Okay, yeah, you need to take this. Bye-bye. But one, it can cause drowsiness. You can cause, for antidepressants, that is, drowsiness. Some of them, one class of them, if you take them at night, less than 1% of the population, but they still say that some persons have very disturbing dreams or nightmares if they take them too close to bedtime. So they advise you take it during the day. And they don't have these disturbing dreams and nightmares. Medication going into the stomach, it is always best for most medications and for these medications for you to take it on a full stomach with a meal. No, a meal is not a slice of toast. So I will go further to say a high caloric diet. It also is not one candy bar, because it has a lot of calories. Okay, a proper meal according to you old people, because it can cause some gastric upset. Some persons also complain of diarrhea or increased frequency in their stools initially. Now, these symptoms usually correct themselves as the body adjusts to the medication over time and usually within the first week to 2 weeks. But obviously, if it is disturbing enough, you need to speak with your doctor about it, particularly the drowsiness. I mean, at first, some patients accept the drowsiness because, you know what, I have not been sleeping for the last 4 weeks. So if this medication can make me sleep, yeah. But if it's going to make you sleep while at work, no. But I think I take your point, and I'm glad you said it, because we need to be careful, yes, with the side effects from medication, but we also need to be careful the way they're presented and the reason why they're presented in the way they're presented for litigious purposes.
Yes, thank you. And let's face it, there is no drug that has no negative side effect. There is no drug at all. So anyhow, that's not the main thing I wanted to say. When we look at depression, like most of us are aware of the spiritual aspect of it and the mood, the psychological aspect of depression. I was just wondering, and this question is for Dr. Chase. Are there deficiencies in our diet, that could contribute to depression? My concern is that in the Caribbean, when a person is depressed, we see it as like a very negative thing, especially if you're a Christian. You should be focusing on praying, and I understand what you're saying about meditation, but I'm just understand what my point. We think that, okay, come on, let's pray, let's meditate, snap out of it. You can get through this. But I am wondering if there is not a medical situation that could be leading to depression. So, for example, just the same way where if you're not getting enough iron, you'll be anemic. Are there deficiencies that you can have that can also lead to depression? So, if that is the case, I'd like Dr. Chase to spend some time on it so that for those people who may be deficient in a particular area, they don't feel as though they have to sit there and not get the treatment that they need. Because, as you mentioned earlier, there can be hormonal imbalances. And a person with a hormonal imbalance, for example, when they go to the doctor to be analyzed, you're doing your medical history, you're doing your checks and so on, but then the person sometimes cannot pinpoint like a specific situation. They may not have lost their job, they may not have lost a family member, anything like that, going along fine, and suddenly they're depressed. I would like for you to maybe go into that, so that for people who cannot find an explanation for their depression, they don't just sit there and think, oh, I'm just going off, And for us as well to realize that not everybody who is depressed should be categorized in the mad category, so to speak.
I don't like the mad category. Because let's not stigmatize our brothers and our sisters. Depression can happen, or depression happens to any and all of us at some point in time. As my sister here said in her testimony, there was a medical illness that first was one of the triggers for her illness, systemic lupus. All right, an advancement in that. In the earlier session, we went through some of the other medical causes as well. In that, however, there isn't a strong link between nutritional deficiencies and depression as such. The nutritional deficiencies are usually as a result of another disorder, of another illness or part of an illness. So it's not necessarily just a deficiency in, let's say, one of the trace elements that can cause an illness. All right? My brother here has a little testimony, not a testimony, a personal testimony, but something that he would have encountered in his counseling.
No, thank you, Dr. Chase. It's just something I wanted to share regarding, I guess, your question. And this is an individual that would have been a middle-aged female and had her womb removed, and again, getting a little older, there would have been some chemical imbalance. And when visiting the doctor now, they would have realized, and after doing tests, there was definitely an imbalance there. And that person was thinking, because he's a Christian, they were thinking more spiritual. So, I mean, they had everybody come to do deliverance in them. Name it, the best of the best came to do deliverance. And one of the things they never did is actually looked at the medical side of it. And that's why I agree with Dr. Chase. It's something that you have to look at on a holistic measure. So this is something that happened actually, again, when you look at what was the cause of the imbalance that led to the whole anxiety, the whole imbalance, it was really that operation that was done. And that was actually discovered after really visiting a doctor. He diagnosed. And well, to date, that person is still challenged with the issue of anxiety. I mean, they wouldn't go close to the phone, not TV. They would stay in a dark room. And they still don't want to address the actual, yes, it's a very, very, very interesting case. So it's something that you have to really look at in a holistic view where you engage both parties, which it could be a physical element you have to deal with. And then, again, we could then go later on and deal with the spiritual side of it.
One other question?
More an observation than a question. Dr. Chase spoke about people coming into church and feeling judged because they have an issue with depression or other anxiety disorders. But in dealing with people who have come, I can tell you that people come wanting you to pray for them and going away feeling better. And there are times when you would even refer them to see a counselor or a psychologist, and they don't want to. And at the base of that is the fact that in our society in general, we see any psychological disorders as being, you're mad, as you rightly said. So it isn't that the church is the one judging them, but people already come with these preconceived ideas that they don't want to be referred to a psychiatrist or a psychologist. They do not want to have a counselor because they don't want people to think that they are crazy. But if they come and the pastor prays for them and they are delivered, they are set free, then there's this victory that they've had. And so having dealt with people who have stubbornly resisted the idea of even seeing a Christian counselor because they don't want people to think, and it's a societal thing. I grew up understanding that if you had to go and get medicine, they're going to give you an injection and you're going to get fat and mad. And that is the perception I had from a small child. And I think a lot of our society has that same perception. We come into church with these same ideas in our head, and the idea that you could see a counselor, you could see a psychiatrist or a psychologist and still be a strong Christian is something that we now have to deal with. Hence, we're having these discussions to bring public awareness that people will get that understanding. But if you look around, you would note that the majority of the population of our community here is missing. Because again, we don't see it as important to get this type of information that would help us as Christians to be strengthened, to know that there is nothing at all wrong with going to see a counselor, that if you need to see a psychiatrist, that is fine. I've had someone who was hospitalized and they didn't want anybody to come. I could come as a pastor, but pastor, don't let anybody else know that I am in this place, because they did not want people to know they had been hospitalized because of a specific issue. And I'm saying it's not just the church judging, but that it is something that we have gotten from society that we now have to overcome so that people will be able to get the benefits of all the different types of answers that there are out there for them.
Very well said.
Now, Marlene, is something, you know, we're dealing with strategies. I think we've exhausted the issue of medication. We recognize that medication is important, but one needs to receive the adequate counseling as well, and the doctor should really advise on medication. But I'm here sitting, I'm not a Christian, and I'm suffering with these mental anxieties and depression and stuff. How do I get help? Because tonight you're all telling me about praying, medicating, reading the Bible, deliverance, but I am not a Christian. So how do I get help?
I was thinking in terms of, okay, CBT, that's cognitive behavioral therapy, has been shown it's an evidence-based therapy, and it has been shown to work, been proven to work for people with depression and anxiety. It really speaks to people's thoughts and how their thoughts influence their feelings and how their feelings influence their behaviors. So as counselors, what we try to do is to reframe some of this thinking that people will have about their situations, their future, their past. So you reframe that, get them to look at the situation and think of it differently, positively, from a positive perspective. And you keep doing that until you train the brain to think that way. And Marlon will be able to address more on that issue.
Yeah, I would agree, and well said, Pastor, because one of the things we have happening sometimes, person think it's like an event you go to and you lay hands and it's up, you're delivered, but it's the process in terms of the programming all the time. So in the sessions, sometimes you constantly have to work with the individuals in terms of reframing their life, their thoughts and what they do, their actions that they would do on a regular basis. So some people think it's a one shot, they lay hands and that's it. It doesn't work like that. Because when you leave the church, when you leave wherever you are, you still have to go back and deal with many different issues and triggers that might come up. So it's equipping that person now how to deal with these things when they arise. What would your response be? And helping them, as you said, to frame it so that they can then make the right choice going forward. And that's where counseling is constantly needed so you can walk that person through that process.
Where can I get this? You see, we're looking for solutions here. Where can I get this counseling? Where can I get this therapy and behavior? Because I am home sitting now, probably watching the internet and wondering, where can I go? I'm in the state now, where can I go? How can I get this help?
Well, we have a counseling service here, a counseling ministry at this church that Pastor Jefferson is in charge of. You can get counseling there. There's Heartbeat Ministries, and Marlon would address that, and he would say who others.
Yes, at Family Heartbeat, again, we specialize in a number of different areas from critical incident stress management, but the whole holistic counseling is where you can definitely come to get whatever it is you need to address it. And I like to also start with the point where awareness leads to transformation. So we want change. And most people, when they come searching, but they're not aware of what it is. So there are a number of different, we call precipitating factors in lives that you have. You need to figure out what's that trigger you need to work on for you to get that release and that freedom so you can live that life that you can be free and happy.
And we work with the counselor to the client works with the counselor to explore all the issues they will be having. The counselor will help you to evaluate the different issues and then how to solve these issues going forward. Like when you meet these situations in your life again, you might not have to come to counseling if the counseling was successful, because all of that would have been discussed before. Coping strategies, you will be taught, all those things to help you going forward.
It's really to help you help yourself. So it is not to be dependent on a counselor or counseling, per se. Anne mentioned CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. We also mentioned that ties into where we said earlier, that people have negative thoughts about themselves, about others, about the world, about the past, about the present, and about the future. So we don't necessarily look back at the past, but we look at dealing with the persons, what they view in their life right now, and some of the negative thoughts that they may have about certain situations. And we sit and have a discussion about it. I'm saying this because some of you may be sitting there and saying, okay, right, so we go through, they talk you through the steps, just use this big fancy word called CBT, so how this has helped me. It helps you in terms of, as Anne was saying, and Marlon, reframing how you look at situations. And even Allison said, facing up to that Egyptian. First, accepting, I have an issue that I need to deal with. And part of that issue is that I look at things in a negative way. So I have to first start by checking myself. Am I looking at this situation in a negative way? What is a positive way, or what is another way I can look at the situation? And will that make me feel better? And will that lead to better what else I do in life? Will it cause me to go to work, or will it cause me to stay in my bed? We all sometimes need that assistance. The counselor is not a healer. Sit down, okay, well, we solve all your problems. That's not what counseling, and that's not what we're here to do. We're here to help you, help yourself. We don't have all the answers. We're not here to solve your individual problem, because you have the solution to solve your problems through Christ. And for those of us out there listening who don't know Christ, I have learned, whether you know him or not, the positive thought that comes into your head to tell you what you should do, that's the Holy Spirit, just that you don't know how to describe it yet. Because he does not discriminate. He loves us all of us. Looks out for all of us. So when we think about counseling, everyone has but that's a madman thing. We need to divorce ourselves with that, but that's societal. That's societal. That is a matter of, we only see that as being in a negative light. For example, when you speak, well, some young people might not know about what an alms house was. But the alms houses are now the geriatric hospital, the St. Philip District Hospital, Gordon Cummings District Hospital, and the St. Lucie District Hospital. So in the past, as an intern coming up and you're trying to speak to the little old lady or little old gentleman to tell them, well, you know, you ain't got nobody home to help you. You ain't physically able to do it. The house dilapidated. You need to go into the geriatric hospital. Well, where that is? Going back out. No, I get an alms house. No, it's not an alms house anymore. It is how we, society, we bring these things forward, and we don't ever let them go. We don't ever let them go. And we hinder ourselves in the help that we need. I have seen a counselor before. I have a counselor. It is advised that once you're in the mental health field that you really should have a counselor or a psychologist. So when I am saying, you know, go and get help, I'm not telling you this because I don't go to one and if I go ahead, I have sound mind. I have my own challenges as well. So don't be afraid.
What is strange is that sometimes somebody will have a broken foot, and the first thing a family member or friend will say is go to QEH and it's all right. But if you have another problem, an emotional issue, nobody will say, well, few people would tell you go to a counselor or go to a psychologist. They would always think, well, why can't you help yourself? Why it is you have that problem? The same way you're going to advise somebody to go to the doctor to see to a broken foot, you can advise them to see a counselor, a psychologist, or a psychiatrist if they have an emotional issue.
All right, I'm gonna start off by saying first, depression can be caused by a lot of things, like For example, some people say the state of mind, it can be caused by a lot of different situations people may encounter in their life. And it can also be caused by, slightest things like I lost my only pet who was only my true and one only friend. Simple things in life that we can little things that we get depressed on that don't really need to be sad about. We could just say, well, it's just a dog. But I mean, it's close to you, but people get depressed about those things and then it carries so far that they feel really bad, then and got to go and take medication. I'm gonna summarize a little bit about my situation in my life. Now, people will tell me as a young person, you shouldn't got no problems in life. You're young, you shouldn't got nothing to worry about. You don't got no children, you don't got no bills to pay, nothing like that. But growing up, I wouldn't say it was tough, but I'm not afraid to speak of what went through. I am the only child, and to be honest, my mother, I never met my mother before, and she bore me and left me in the hospital and told the rest of the family that I was dead, and I only knew that till I was a certain age when my adopted mother told me that, and I was like, okay, that's true, because I find it strange. But then when I realized my last name was different from theirs, then I understood that yes, that had to be true, that I was actually their adopted daughter and I was not their real biological daughter. So it hadn't impacted me. It didn't really bother me as much when I was going to school. But then I had problems with like primary school and being bullied a lot about myself. People were bullying about everything you possibly could think about. Talking about like dark. I mean, them dark too, but they were talking about like dark, like a burn up biscuit, and all kind of horrible things. And there are primary school children telling me I can't hurt a fly, and it was tall like this, and people was always accusing me of my height. I wasn't always this big, but I was tall and it was slim. People would tell me, accuse me of my size, would frame me with a lot of things. And the thing about me, I am very soft. Even from small, it was soft and shy, and I guess all that stress that built up over the years caused me to get depressed. Now, as I got to secondary school, I was hoping, I was like anybody else, feel like a small fish in a big pond, and I was hoping, well, I didn't want to go to that certain secondary school, and they said, well, I here already, I know this body from primary school, next body, I said, all right, I'm going to go in here, I'm going to do my best, and I'm going to make some friends. I look around and said, look, I can keep she as a friend. But it didn't work out as I expected. And I was a Christian. I grew up in church I was going to church from 4 years old in this same church. And I was a Christian from a very young age, from 4 years old. And of course, I was praying and going to church and trusting God. And I would pray every morning, get up. But, but I found that as I got older, like, in the first term, I was doing well. My grades and everything were exceedingly well. But then I find the second term, the children, like, everybody would look at me in this particular way, like, they grudge me or hate me. I couldn't understand what they were thinking of me. And they were bullying me and telling me that I got imitation by. They were offering me a lot of different things, snatch away, teeth away, all my things, and tell me a lot of hurtful things. And I went through a lot as a young child. And from first form right up to fourth form, I had been going through that stress to the third term. When I tell my mother, I had to go on cooking classes, and I was crying, and my mother realized how bad it was because I was begging her to transfer me. And I know in that time I had an article in the newspaper about a boy who was being bullied, and he got transferred. And at the same school he got transferred, the bullies running across the road, and that's how he get let down. The poor boy that was being bullied got let down by a car. So my mother was looking at that, but she still transferred me to a private school, and it went well for the first time, but then after a while it still had problems. So I guess by the different things that I went through, my depression came from worrying a lot. Now, when I was 15 years old, when I was still in school, before that, all this depression, whether it was at the same school before I got transferred to private school, I've been, it was like, I need to get out of the situation. I came to this same church, I talked to Pastor Gail and Sister Edgel. She introduced me to different people like Pat Downs and different counselors, and I asked them why it is that the children aren't free. Even the same counselors at the same secondary school, and they say, well, it could be possible they judge you for how you look or how you dress or blah, 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 or these counselors that Miss Gill said she don't really know, but you know the enemy, you know how the Christians will say that the enemy is out there trying to target you because you know that he's trying to block you from getting through. And they were praying for me, and I remember a Good Friday I woke up. Good Friday I dreamed a dream that God was talking to me, and I woke up that morning and I felt so peaceful, and I felt different, and I felt a calmness in my spirit. But I was still going through the problem, still feeling depressed, and it got worse and worse to a point where I didn't get strong in God. So I started coming to church a lot more and pressing myself into, you know, getting deeper into faith for God and reading my Bible more and more and more. I remember the verse said that, for God, I'm not getting a spirit of fear, but a power and love and a sound of a mind, and you have to keep the spirit of faith no matter what. And people were telling me, you know, the good things, you know, keep up, no, don't worry, you're going to get through, and all these good advice people were giving you. But, you know, as Alison said, you're getting these good examples and things in life, but it ain't taking it in, and you ain't getting nowhere, you're still worrying, and it had me a little bit confused, although I was trying strongly to pray and read my Bible, and I was actually getting deep in the Bible, that the situation got worse. You know, I was doing a lot of strange things. The situation got worse where my parents had to get further treatment for me, so they had to carry me to a psychiatrist and a psychologist, and they told me they think that the problem is that, yes, they recommended medicine for me, and they said that the problem with the thing is that I read the Bible too much. That's the first thing they said, that I read the Bible too much. So they said you need to stop, hold off that. Because I started reading the Bible from Genesis, I said, look, I'm going to try to read the whole Bible, but I started reading from Genesis and read out the verse every day, like a devotional thing. I had a devotional book too that I would read, and they tell me start reading the Bible because it sends you mad. That's the first thing they say. And I was praying. I bait off to see if that was solved. Because I really wanted to get out of this situation. And sometimes I would feel lonely. I didn't have any friends, you know. Nobody would not talk to me. Children would laugh and squirt at me. One or two would say hi or anything, but nobody would not message me on my phone. I could have a phone for a whole day, and nobody would not message me. And it was in this point, a situation in my life where I decided taking on, and it's in this point in my situation, but why it is that I felt like nobody didn't care about me, nobody doesn't love me. Why it is, I had thoughts too, like suicidal thoughts. Sometimes I would think that I would not even make it to 18, 19, and 21. And I had these thoughts like, why am I here? Why did God bring me here? A lot of different crazy thoughts, I should say, that I had, you know, and I had attempts to kill myself and different things. I write notes and different things, and the situation got really bad, and my parents had to get medicine for me, you know. I won't go too deep into the situation, but I find in some of these hospitals, like the psychiatric hospitals, they don't like you to, like when you go to the outpatient, they don't like you to bring Bibles into the hospital. I even heard a patient said that I know from me, they say that she couldn't bring a Bible inside the hospital because they would take it away. They don't like you to bring a Bible in there. And she's a Christian, and she told me that. So that had me wondering, like, as you know, the world today, you know, you will worry about all these things that happen in the world. You will know that there are a lot of heathens and atheists out there, and people don't believe in God. So, and that was when I was 15 years, and that was 4 years ago, and I said, well, I tried my best to get out of the situation. So I was praying every morning. I would pray every afternoon. I would pray. I would get deeper, and I would come to church and worship God. And I would try to come to church as often. But it still wasn't improving. I took the medication, and the problem that I had a lot of side effects, though. I had side effects because the medicine was strong. And I had to go to my regular doctor to tell him to bring about these side effects. And he said that I need to bring down the medication. So when they bring it down, the medicine, after a while, I gradually came off. So I felt like I got better, and then, but the problem was, I still had that feeling it's like I'm going through an emotional feeling where I feel stressed a lot because I still didn't get any friends. I struggling with my schoolwork in terms of CXC and problems that I can't understand why I gotta go through all these problems. I mean, like a normal person, I'm a human being like anybody else. I want to get through in life like anybody else. I want to get a job. I want to get through in life. I want to go to heaven. I want to do what's right, become a woman of God. But I can't understand. I praying, I going to church, I reading my Bible. I try and keep away from the things of the world and doing what's right, but I don't know what's going on. And people will say, God let you go through these things for a reason, but don't worry, you know the Bible where Jesus said, in the world you will find tribulation, but in him, be of good cheer, in him you will find peace. So I read this verse in with Paul when he said he have fought a good fight, he finished his course, but he have kept the faith. So all these verses are motivational. But I had to still keep in mind that people say don't read the Bible too much because you know it was saying crazy. I don't want to go back crazy. So I try to read pinpoint verses, go online and read some pinpoint verses that are important. So I got better, and then now when I thought things were getting better, I went to some place, a tertiary level place, and I had the same problem. People were bullying me and all kinds of things. I say, and it got bad where I get angry, and that's when I write a suicidal thing that I gonna kill myself and blah 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 blah. And my parents, like, they were frightened for me, and I got angry and I flare up and I left the house and let them know. They when they come back home to see it, they call the police for me, and you know, they're saying me in to see a psychiatrist. And but the question is I have is doing all this counseling by talking to psychiatrists, psychologists, counselors, and all this throughout my life I've been doing, talking to these people, I find, and yes, they give me medicine as well, depression tablets, medicine for if you're hearing voices, all of that had happened to me too. So the question is, even though you went through all of this and taking the medication, the question is, yes, it ain't gonna heal one time, but I find, you know, as it's true that the side effects work more than it do good for you, but I find when you tell the psychiatrist that you feel down still and it ain't working, they like to think that you ain't getting better, so they're gonna increase it. That's a problem that I have there. So I just got to hide that. You know, I don't like to keep the spirit of fear, but I can't go and tell them that I feel depressed, I feel down, I feel lonely. They're going to increase the medicine. My mother will always tell me, do not, I'm in a tough situation now where I got to get out of it. So I try to make sure I pray and ask, keep the faith and try to make myself happy and stuff like that. So, you know, if I tell them that, they're going to say...
Excuse me, I don't really want to interrupt, but time is running on, and I need you to please ask the question so that the panelists will get an opportunity to respond, please.
Right, the question is, if the medicine will really work, because if you've been taking the medicine all the time, and to me it don't seem to be really working, and it will change the medicine, if the medicine will actually work, because they don't really seem to be serving a purpose, all they really seem to be doing is making you, you know, the side effects seem to be more working than the actual good. And then that means you will have to stay on it longer, and then you will spend your whole life, which will dampen a lot of it. So I want to know if it will actually work, if the medicine, if it's working.
One question I have for you. You said that you also went to, you did counseling and psychologists and psychiatrists. Now that you're on the medication or you were taking the medication, do you still see the psychologist or the counselor?
Yeah, I still see the counselor and psychiatrist and different things like that.
No, not the psychiatrist. The psychologist or the counselor. Do you still see them?
Yeah, I still see them, but not as often.
Okay. What do y'all do in these sessions?
Well, there's supposed to be a session at the hospital, the psychiatric hospital called OT, where I had to go to that, and they would they're supposed to counsel you on different things and go through things like that there. Okay.
Have you found that helpful?
To be honest, no, I don't find that to be no helpful to me.
So that was occupational therapy. Did they send you to a psychologist itself?
I went to all of those different people, church ones, normal ones. I went to everybody I could possibly think of. People I had to pay enough money, and
The reason why I ask is because they said it usually works together. There's not a one suit fit all prescription. And I like to tell persons that come in contact with me when they ask, so how long it can take for me to feel better? How long you can go home? I do not know. I am not the Lord. But we will stay the course. It sounds to me as if medication, yet again, the side effects and the medication and you seem not to be fitting and gelling. The unfortunate truth of that is that in Barbados, we do have a limited range of medication. And the medication does cause some side effects. You also said you were taking some for voices and that kind of stuff. But they work in tandem. And to me, it sounds more as if you're just getting more medication and no counseling or psychotherapy. And listening to you, ma'am, one of your psychotherapy or counseling is one of the pillars in your therapy. It is not a magic pill. It is not a magic formula that is going to lift you out of this darkness, out of these roads. But in psychotherapy or in counseling, it is dealing with the day-to-day things that will pop up. So you see how you have all the bullying. Let's talk about in the present, where you were in a tertiary institution and you're having these other stressors. Those are the things that you work through counseling. Those are the things that needs to be targeted, not just taking the medication. The medication, yes. Medication is another topic that may need adjusting, but that's a discussion you have to have with your doctor, because I don't know what medication you're on per se. And I don't know what they've exactly diagnosed your illness as, if it's purely depression or something else. But that counseling and that psychotherapy is equally important, because it is not a one trigger for you, because you kept saying, as I was listening over and over, that there are a lot of little things that boil up. So it is not a single dose. Occupational therapy, I don't think is really geared for that counseling. Occupational therapy is mainly used for persons. It can give you some coping mechanisms, coping skills, but it is usually to get you, in terms of work on your functioning, your social and your occupational functioning. That is not seemingly listening to you. It's not necessarily your challenge, because you got into primary, secondary, and gone on to tertiary level education. It is the day-to-day challenges which roughs up all of us. So there ain't nothing wrong with that. Every single day, there's something is pelt you in something different. And it's sometimes during that needs to be more a forefront in you looking to get better. In terms of reading the Bible, the medical fraternity, well, some persons, I should say, because I can't speak for all, some persons have a divide between medicine, and particularly in psychiatry, medicine and religion. And that divide appears because there's a lot of fuzziness in a lot of persons' minds. There are some persons that will read the Bible and interpret it in the wrong way. And when I say in the wrong way, as in it will not be of God. And some mental health workers cannot distinguish that from when you are reading the Word for your spiritual development, fulfillment, and help. I can't speak to the female ward because I don't really work there. But I know on the ward I work and on male admission, we have their library of books. And in that library are about 8 or 12 Bibles. Patients bring their own Bibles as well. for those who have their own Bibles, and sometimes that's what occupies their time, because sometimes they don't got nothing else to do on the ward. So it is not discouraged, but I know some of my colleagues, they're not able to distinguish between someone who is reading the Bible for fulfillment and someone who is not well and interpreting the Bible in an ungodly manner. So they just take the Bible out of it. For safety, we ain't allowed that, none of that there. We just take it out. But even on C4, there are Bibles on C4 as well. When I was there up until 2012, because I left there in 2012, the nurses would hold morning prayer sessions, followed by a group meeting. So it's not everywhere that the Bible is left out, but I know there are some colleagues that they have a lot of fuzziness along the gray lines of what is religiosity or religious and what's Christian. So their solution is to take the Bible out of it, but that is not the norm. And in most units that I have worked on, there have been Bibles there. All right? As I said, and I reiterate, and it's a classic example, medication does not the end-all and the be-all. We go through rigorous things on a daily basis that we sometimes need help with. And that sounds to be one of your pillars that is missing right now.
Well, Pastor Jefferson has given me the wrap about 20 minutes ago, so I think we need to, is there one last question? Please make it a question, because we need to wrap up.
Hi, good night, church, and hi, good night to the panel. I just had a quick question about diagnosis process. Like, are there any tests that are done to help an individual to find out whether or not they're having difficulty just coping with situations, or if they actually need to have medical attention, if they actually need to have help?
That's a clinical, all diagnoses are clinical diagnoses, so that is based on a clinical interview, and it takes into account many factors during that clinical interview. So there's not one given test that we use or one single instrument. We usually use it on a case-by-case person, on a clinical assessment. So there isn't a single test, no.
All right, well, thank you very much. Give the panelists one minute to wrap. Each panelist will get 1 minute to wrap, and then we'll turn it over. So we'll start with Marlon.
Good night again, and thank you very much for having me again here at People's Cathedral. I want to first applaud the young lady that just stood up. I think that took a lot of courage, because it was transparency there. Well done, you did a good job. So I hope we can have a discussion with the team here in terms of some of the smaller things that you can do in your daily basis. But what I want to encourage the church, everyone who's here today, is please, as Christians, let's see each other through God's lens. Because I keep hearing something that's coming up in terms of how we view people as Christians. I mean, children of God. I think one of the biggest challenges we have is putting labels on people. And that's one thing as Christians we should not do. So if there's anything I want to encourage you to do, please don't. Because, again, you hear the conversation of, you talk about the arms home, going to that. We were in a meeting this week, and there's a critically ill man in an institution, and the thing about it, he can't be moved again because of his past and what he's tied to. So it was said in the meeting, this is me, I'm a Bajan, naturalized Bajan, but these are other persons who are Barbadians sitting in the room saying that Barbadians are unforgiving. They always remember your past. And I think that's something we need to look at as Christians. Please, let's put past in the past and see people through the eyes that God would see them through. Peter is one great instance. Peter was, would we say he had anxiety problem? Because in the garden he chopped off the guy, he took off the guy's ears, right? But again, Then the other instance, he denied Christ how many times? Once, right? No? Twice? All right, 3 times. But when God looked at him, God didn't remember all those things in the past. God looked at him and he saw him for what? What's the statement when Christ looked at Peter? What did he say? On this rock. Because he saw what was in him. So as Christians, I want to encourage us to see persons like how Christ and how God, the creator of this universe, sees every individual.
I would like everyone to leave here with 2 points from my aspect of things. One, our outlook on mental health and our mental illness. And let's not ostracize mental health from physical illness and other illnesses. Let's not look at the word mad, crazy, mental house, madhouse, the mental hospital, or you got psychiatric problem. Let us not look at that. Let us look at the fact that it is an illness if we have an illness, like any other illness. And 2, just like any other illness, we need sometimes to seek help for it. So don't suffer yourself in silence when there's help available, because you don't want to be classified as going to a psychologist or a psychiatrist or psychologist for being mad. We need to start changing that mentality in this society. And how do we change it? It starts with each and every one of us changing our mindset about it. So if nothing else you leave here with, I want you to leave here with those 2 things.
My take on the whole thing is that I'm thinking more in terms of what Pastor Joel would have been trying to speak about for the past few months, about the community spirit and being supportive of each other, because sometimes if we draw near and establish a friendship with somebody, draw near to somebody, that alone can make their day. Also, doing something kind for a person, drawing near, say, well, okay, this is my friend, I've established a friendship in the church. A young lady spoke and said she had no friends. That is really unfortunate. So we as a church need to come together more to be supportive of each other. And that in itself will help people who are facing these depressive issues and so on to overcome if they felt that they had more support from us. And that is my take on it.
What I would say is that everyone's recovery is different. I think we have to acknowledge that everybody would have a different way of transitioning out of that dark place. What I would caution others who may be encouragers, though, to do, or not do, rather, would be not to say to people things like, snap out of it, or get over it. It is not as easy as you think. It is not just a case of just waking up, getting a good night's rest and getting up and it's all gone. It is much deeper than you may recognize. So your words can pierce like a knife sometimes, and sometimes that may be what would keep people away from sharing and asking for help. So be mindful of your words, be mindful of what you say, think before you speak, in other words, and speak positive into people's lives. Don't say things that would bring them even further into a lower space. So that would be all I would say to the panel, to the audience tonight. Thank you.
And I would like to thank the panel for giving up their time tonight. I really thank you very much for contributing. I think you should give them a round of applause again. I would especially like to thank Alison for coming and sharing her experience with us. You know how hard it is to get a Christian to come on this platform and admit to the fact that they have been depressed. So I think it's commendable and admirable what you've done. And I hope that tonight opens the door for people to understand that mental illness and mental health is not a crime. We're not going to look down on you because you may have a mental problem. We need to change that. We need to speak life into people and not death. And remember this, seeking help is not a sin. Seeking help is not a sin. So therefore, once again, thank you, panelists, and thank you again, Alison. Thank you all of you all for contributing to this wonderful session that we had tonight. And I pray that God will be with you, and that anyone here who's struggling with any mental health issue, know this, there's help here at the church. So if you have any mental health issues, you can call us here at the church, speak to Pastor Jefferson, and we will find you the help necessary in Jesus' name.
Good night to everyone. I would say we really had a beautiful evening, and thank God we've come to the end of another successful